Mini Takes Podcast.
Look, if I open up your painting tutorial and the first step is getting out an airbrush, buddy, I'm not watching.
Bunch of nerds on the internet. Are you even having fun with this anymore?
Shane, if this happens, there's going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth, people burning their armies.
If you can't see it, don't paint it. Mini Takes Podcast is back again. We hope we get this recorded before we lose power, get blown away, otherwise get bodied by tornado type action. That's what's happening today.
They are on their way. They are making their way across the region, but that won't stop us.
It is all thundery bumbly where I sit, and if you guys can hear it, that's what that noise is. As always, Mini Takes wants your takes. I made an observation, first of all, over on the Spotify where you can listen to us and leave comments and things. It appears the ratings have been cleared out. Probably because we renamed the thing, and it's sort of a new podcast. However, the old 40K Fanatics episodes are still there, but this is an opportunity. If you were a bleep hole and gave us 1 star before, you can go give us 5 stars now. So, if all of our lovely fans would go and do that, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube. Check out our Discord, linked down below, totally free. And there's one other thing. Oh, yes, a new Facebook page.
Ooh.
A Mini Takes Facebook page where you can leave your takes wherever you want. They're on. But these couple of takes that I'm going to read for you now come from the YouTube on our last pod where we talked about the combat and things in 11th edition 40K that's coming out. This week they're revealing grots one at a time. So
that is something. That is, talk about dragging it out.
That's something for somebody, right?
And here's a grot.
Yeah, and you know what? They look great. But Saurus Blood says, this is talking about AP and shooting in the way that cover now is presumably not going to do anything to the AP. I said, that's going to be a problem. He responds thusly. Well, we need to think about what we saw in 10th. AP1 weapons became just as bad as AP0 weapons, and there was a bit of a time where people tried to do things to buff their AP, only for people to just drop those weapons and say, if it isn't AP -2, then it isn't worth taking. We're going to see that likely with shooting. If you're normally hitting on 4+ and don't ignore cover, you're probably going to shelve. They're probably going on the shelf this edition. As someone with 4+ shooting with a 4+ shooting army, I always try to find a way to buff my shooting to hit on 3s, but units with ignore cover or remove it are now the priority. I don't think he's wrong. The fact that even the armies that hit on 4s tend to reroll their shooting, I think it's, you're sort of shooting on 3.5, aren't you? So I don't know how much it's going to matter. I predict, here's a take, I predict that the cover is -1 AP and -1 to hit within like 2 weeks of 11th edition existing.
That'll be interesting.
I mean, there is so much stuff this AP4. Here's the thing, right? The problem with the AP is that your save can only go up to a 6. It can only reasonably go down to a 2, right? So you only typically have 2 points of AP that don't just feel horrible, right? And when you've got cases where you can add AP to stuff, and so all of a sudden you can have, mastercrafted bolt weapons be AP 2 or 3. It doesn't feel good to just, especially you get into things that are like AP4, okay? Obviously that gets to be super egregious. It just sucks to pick up Marines without ever rolling a save, okay? And a 6-up save feels like not rolling a save. So anytime you have your Marines on worse than 5s, I think that's a problem. Now, obviously, that's AP3, but there's a lot of stuff that has AP3. If I ruled the world, las cannons would be AP2.
Why?
Because they do D6 and some odd damage, and maybe we would change the +1 to +2 or whatever to sort of flatten that. Because The boon is the damage, not that it just destroys anything it hits. It destroys anything it hits via being a ton of damage, you see. That's probably what I would do. Again, it's my opinion that the game feels best when the Space Marines work really good. And the AP tends to make the Space Marines not work so good. And of course, we need the AP because we got knights and we got tanks and we got all this stuff, right? But it just feels like an arms race for arms race sake. Craig J6750 says, this is talking about my 5 minutes where I talked about doing water slide decals. He says, did a lot of water slide decals for my Death Watch shoulder pads, really makes them pop. Not too difficult, really. Some decal sheets work better than others. I always put a layer of that Citadel Ard coat over them to keep them from falling off or flaking. So what I've been doing lately, because I airbrush indoors, is I hit everything with a Army Painter matte varnish, and I put it on quite thick with the airbrush, and so that's what I did on all of my things, especially all my things with the decals, but also stuff that I have been painting with a little more gusto. The Pansy Man says,
Is it Pansy Man?
P A
I was reading it
N
as
Z I
Panzer Man.
Z I E Man.
Okay. Well, read the comment and I will take another look at it because my brain was auto-correcting to Panzer.
Yeah, well, that's because you and I are totally World War II pilled lately.
Oh yeah, it is the Pansy
The
Man.
Pansy Man says, shooting? Question mark. I thought that was just something you did to keep from getting bored on the way to Melee. I bet you he's excited about the grot reveals.
Yeah. Get in the
um,
comments. Tell us which garrote is your favorite. Which one do you think is going to be the best garrote of this week? I'm voting for so far number 2 with the top knot. He is looking fabulous.
I haven't seen him. I'm going to vote for number 4.
Okay, we will see what number 4 is
Yep,
in a few days.
I'm a raising blind, as they say in poker, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah.
Um, Over on Spotify, you can also leave comments, and like I say, leave that 5-star review for us. We would appreciate it very much. Frequent contributor Dave and Company says, chess, sports, this is all I want in 11th. 1. Any given Sunday. Any faction should have an even chance to win. I should never show up with an army, and my opponent has a codex that's new and totally broken. Sometimes I see that, and I just want to say, you win and not bother. It should be anybody's game, roughly. I've got some takes on these. I think we'll go one at a time once I read them because he's got 3 points. 2. Stop changing the rules every 5 freaking minutes, GW. Parenthetical, enough said. 3. Fun. I shouldn't need a PhD and 5 hours to play a game. It should be a good time, not an ordeal. All right. Number 1. He is right. Some of these codexes come out absolutely totally busted. However, if you're not playing against bleep holes in your pickup games, I find that the game is really, really close. I played a game last week. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I played against the homie Jeremy, and he brings lists that are not quite fun lists all the time. However, it came down to the absolute wire. I won by 1 solitary point. So, you can't get much closer than that, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Score was 76-77, which is a good game, you know? There
Mm-hmm.
was very little left by the end. Number 2, stop changing the rules every 5 minutes. I feel like, and look, I appreciate Dave because he is about fun, and we are about fun. I feel like this kind of flies in the face logically of the first point, which is if stuff's messed up, they got to change it. Or else you're going to sit around for what, half an edition with somebody's got a busted codex, and you'll just show up to an RTT and play 3 rounds against Aldari, who will then all play against Aldari. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing? So I'm for the rules changes. I also believe that they tend to be smaller than we make of them. Does that make sense?
I think it depends on what kind of rule changes we're talking about. If we're talking about the just little supplement changes, little like Codex FAQs and stuff they do about quarterly and stuff. Those are generally small changes for the most part, just kind of sidestepping a few things. But if we're talking about like Codex level changes or edition level changes, those can get tedious. But those are kind of more like big things every like few years.
Well, and it's like fixing devastating to not be mortals, right? I
Hmm.
understand how that would be frustrating if you were however many, 5 games in, getting your head around devastating wounds and how they do the mortals, but the mortals come after the regular wounds, whatever, right? And then they were like, okay, they're not mortals anymore. You just can't save them, and then they don't spill over. So now you've got a new thing to remember. That one, I feel like, is not that complicated, and two, needed to happen because I'm sure everybody was discovering quite quickly, like, oh no, Abaddon walks in and hacks at 25 dudes, so you think you've got him stuck in the mud. No, you do not, because all that damage just spills over into mortals and it goes crazy, right? Nobody wanted it
Hmm.
that way. Um,
I also think there's kind of a talking about people that don't want the rules to change too much. Some of these people, they're getting like one game a month, if even that. There's guys coming up. They have families, they have jobs where they can't play very often. So when they get their one game a month at the local game store or at a friend's garage, they're having to kind of relearn the game with these incremental changes that kind of like over time stack up into larger changes if you're not on top of everything.
yeah, I could see that. I also think too, though, man, a whole lot of the like big balance data slate stuff kind of tend to, and I feel like they tend to answer questions that not many people are asking, right?
Mhm.
It's a lot of edge case clarification that if it comes up, I think it's probably nice that there's an answer. But whether or not you can even find it or bother to find it in the case that you're talking about like our, let's say more casual players, I don't know how much it matters. And also, if you're a person who likes just the book and you're somebody that just flips to the data sheet in the book, just play like that. Um, Number three, fun. I shouldn't need a PhD and 5 hours to play a game. It should be a good time, not an ordeal. That, I've never had a 5 hour game. And I'm not saying Dave and his experience is incorrect. He is right. It is complicated. I, th- I don't know. I don't know. Because I think it is fun. I think, again, if you're not playing with bleep holes all the time, maybe that's the thing. Maybe Dave is the only one in his community that's trying to have fun. Maybe I tell you what, and this is like a pro tip. If you want to play fun games, let them know. Say, hey, I'm going to bring some goofy stuff. Do not bring your tournament list. I do not want to practice against your tournament list. Da da da. And then the people can decide, well, I don't want to play with you. Okay, fine. And then you ask the next person. Somebody is going to be sick of running the sweatiest nonsense that they can run. I promise you.
Hmm.
I would say, if you've got 5 people, 3 or 4 of them are tired of playing sweaty games every single time they line them up because it can be brutal, right?
Hmm.
Oh, you destroyed 3 units on that shooting phase. Okay, I guess I'll limp along with what I got left. Or we could all bring cool stuff, and the results will vary.
Yeah.
So, um, I like those. I like those takes that Dave left. I like. I see what that guy's talking about the shooting too, and how it's gonna be a bunch of ignore cover to dodge that -1 to hit. Or we all gonna reroll constantly and it won't really, and we're not even gonna feel the -1 to hit.
Hmm.
What would happen if it was -2 to hit but can't go below? I don't know.
I think we didn't. I think at a certain point we just need to end up in like melee slog the game. You can fire your guns as much as you want. It's not gonna do anything, and you just end up and just duke it out in the middle.
I love that actually. My guess,
So,
my chaos space marines fight pretty good, man. The shooting is a little bit just some pitter patter to knock out some tanks here and there, and then really we're trying to stand in the middle with a bunch of characters and chop you up.
just make every army orcs. Everyone hits on sixes. With everyone with the cover changes, everyone would be hitting on sixes. Doesn't matter what you're shooting. Just take the shots and see if they do something, and then end up in the middle and just start duking it out. Have guardsman versus Tau duking it out in the mud. Be
So
great.
silly, so silly. Um, let's get on to our main topic. So, Mini Takes podcast is kind of a new podcast in case you guys are just joining us. And before we did a 40K specific podcast, and what we would often run into is that we wanted to talk about other games because there are a lot of you that like other games. And we just did a bunch of 40K talk. So, you can leave now, or you can hear our takes on something that we've both gotten into. Now, we've been into bolt action. I mentioned earlier that we're both very World War II pilled lately. I think the reason for me is because I've become a man of a certain age. I think next year I turn 40. Now
Wow.
you've already had like a Civil War phase and everything because your particular brand of autism is to get into old man stuff on the front end, and then maybe you'll do sports cars and weed, uh, in your 70s, right? You'll get
I,
you'll
I
get a BMX bike with some trick pegs.
Yeah, I've always been big into history all my life, uh, and I think being able to combine history and miniature wargaming is uh, the best marriage of interests. And so I've dipped my toe in everything. I've done medieval stuff. I've done World War II with Flames of War. I've done Civil War stuff, as you mentioned. But the World War II stuff is fun. When I did Flames of War, I did British. I had some British desert mid-war, and then I had some British late war with the everything was desert rats. I played desert rats in Normandy and North Africa, and it's a fun period to kind of war game in. There's all kinds of stuff going on, all kinds of weapon changes as the war progresses, uh, but it is fun. What do you think?
Well, we're going to talk about bolt action slash historicals today, and Austin had some
Hmm.
neat takes on historical accuracy in like your paint jobs and in your army, right? Because
Hmm.
you tend to be a little more worried about it than I am, let's just say. And so we thought it would make a nice discussion, and I imagine there will be some proper pedants in the comments that want to eviscerate me in every regard, right?
Really?
Because those leather straps are the wrong shade of leather. So that's what we're talking about. And then, this doesn't just apply to bolt action, which is how we're going to frame it, but it kind of applies to 40K too, right? Especially with the GW and their paint naming convention, where it's like, oh, well, this one's clearly the one you use for the Thousand Suns because it says Thousand Suns. And I have some takes about that. So go ahead and set us up. How'd you arrive at this topic? You said you're excited about it. Let's hear it.
So I came about this. We've talked about this quite a few times before when we've been discussing painting bolt action. Uh, but this is something that I've noticed in kind of the historical wargaming community since I kind of got into Flames of War when I was trying to look up because the Shermans for the U.S. were painted generally an olive drab color, and so I looked it up. I was like, I don't know what an olive drab is, so I like looked it up. What is olive drab? And I ended up going down this insane rabbit hole of uh, military history boomers on some forum getting into a huge argument with each other over what color olive drab is supposed to be on their tanks. And these are more modelers, not really gamers, so they're more interested in the minutia of the details and getting their stuff right. And so these guys literally were taking photographs from the war and taking those as the comparison, and then they were taking paint chips of different olive drab variations and running those through Photoshop, through the photo filter they have for like filtering for different like films, and they're taking old like Kodak film from the 1940s and comparing these filtered paint chips to the historical photos and trying to figure out which shade is the most historically accurate. And it's that level of detail obsession that just blew my mind and broke me. I'm thinking, well, at a certain point, we just need to pick. We need to choose and get on with it. And it's just this level of, I guess, historical accuracy, and you see it in reenactment as well. You see uh, someone gets into historical reenacting, and they've got their uniform on, and they think, "Oh man, look at me! I'm all spiffy and cool, and can't wait to hit the reenactment field." And then you get the guys picking them over, saying, your buttons are actually wrong. This is the wrong button. This isn't exactly accurate. So I guess you can't really play with us. You're not doing it right." It's kind
Yeah,
of how it goes.
that sort of photo analysis thing, right? Makes me think about what I always say when people are like, "You should get a 3D printer, man, because then you can just print up your bits and print up your da da da." And I'm like, man, that's it. That's its own hobby that I have
Hmm.
no interest in at all, right? At the point that you're like a modeler or some sort of hobbyist, and you find yourself collecting paint swatches and then taking pictures of them, and what are you going to get a dark room? So now you're a whole old school photographer for the purpose of trying to get the particular shade of green for a model Jeep. The storm is here, by the way. I don't know if you can hear that. If
Oh,
we
I've got
lose
stuff going on too.
if we lose power, I don't even know what'll happen to this recording. I think it may not even do. So we'll let you know if we record later, or maybe we'll be dead. But um, that's just so far away from the thing that we're trying to do. I feel like
Mm.
the 3D printing feels that way to me. When I'd be like, oh, well, your feed speed, and we got all these forums where they talk about, well, if you're gonna print like terrain, you can get it done this fast with these settings on this printer, and dot 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 dot, on and on and on. What resin are you using? Is what temperature is your house? What's humidity, etc. Right? I don't have any interest in that. And here's another thing. I mentioned how we could tie this a little bit to 40K in that, like, the Thousand Suns blue or whatever it is, that teal color that they sell in the little pot. Okay? Do an experiment. Go put that on white, and go put that on black. Tell me if those two are the same color. It almost won't matter how many coats you put over black versus over white. They will not
Mhm.
be the same color. Oh, but then we want to sort of have some shading, and we want to have some gradients and things. At some point, teal-ish reads as teal is gonna look like a Thousand Sun because they're the right shape and they've got all this gold trim, right?
Mhm.
Here's my thing about the bolt action and the historicals too, especially when we get to sort of like modern warfare, and I'm saying modern like post World War One. Machine guns were out of the trenches, somewhat, and we're talking about like standardized, large standing militaries. Okay, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. The U.S. guys wore a whole bunch of green ish, right? Kind of earth tones. If they were in the desert, it was a lot of khaki, right?
Well, they still wore olive drab in North Africa.
Okay. Uh, the the British troops, not in Africa, wore what colors? some variation of
They
green,
were wearing olive drab
right? The Germans, what'd they wear?
camo above their field grays.
Right? So pretty much green. So we start to get to a point. Think about Vietnam. U.S. wore green. Vietcong wearing some version of green. It makes sense because the world is largely green, except in places where it's tan, and then they wear tan. Everybody wears tan. So when we get to a 28 millimeter war game, it's my opinion, and this is like my opinion, man. This is it's many takes. This is my take. Leave your takes in the comments and argue with me. We appreciate it. We'll read them next week. Um, let's say I was going to have quite a variety of World War II armies for bolt action. It would not be difficult for me to have 4 different factions that are all green. Like from a playing distance, they would be nearly indistinguishable from one another. Is that what we want? Does that make sense? And then you get into the, oh, what particular shade of green is it? You're not going to be able to tell. You can't tell. My bolt action guys, my U.S. airborne guys, the theme of them is they are elevated green plastic army men. That's the idea. And I think that if I were gonna do let's say North African, British, I would do you remember this? Or you may not even be old enough to have ever played with the plastic army men. Sometimes you get the
I
bag that
played.
okay, you could get the bag that was all green, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the bag that was all khaki?
Hmm.
So that's what I would do. And then I would be able to tell, here are my US Airborne, and here are my uh, British African Corps, or whatever you call them. And then you actually see this if you go look at the Warlord game website. They kind of do the US is a bunch of olive drab, and then the Germans are grayer or darker, and then the Italians are a bunch of tan. The Japanese, I believe they tend to paint a bunch of tan, like a totally different color. And I
I
think
mean, that's the historical colors.
is it?
Yeah. Yeah, those are the historical colors.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. You telling me that at no point did any Japanese soldiers ever in any way match uh the field they were fighting on?
Like they had custom uniforms made for the specific island they were on.
No.
No, I don't. What are you saying?
I'm saying that on Warlord Games website they've got them painted yellow. And I can't imagine that that would be a
Kind of
strong tactical choice.
this. I'm saying a almost a khaki brownish color.
I meant to look it up.
Some
I meant to look it up so I could have better examples, but my point is that you could very easily end up with a whole lot of tables that look nearly indistinguishable from force to force. And I don't think and I feel like that's missing the point. That's my point. Because
Well, what I'm saying is this is.
we
Well,
have
go ahead. I'll dogpile.
yeah, because we have to be able to distinguish what is what. Whose is whose. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. I mean, I understand that I'm in the minority on this thing because
Okay, so
there's a part of me that is like, I think this works best as Risk, where you've got like the blue army and the red army and the green army. Go ahead.
so this is what generally there would be maybe a little bit of variation, but generally, if we're trying to distill these down into kind of their base form, this is what they would have looked like on the field. And it's less of a matter of we need to recognize, because we're getting away from that with this point, especially with the uniform colors. We're getting away from we need to know who's red and who's blue on the battlefield, which makes sense for a game perspective. But we're trying to model history on the tabletop. Everyone's generally wearing these earth tones that generally match. It's kind of a trying to combine matching your kind of area that you're going to be in, combined with not making it too hard, I guess, to produce. You're kind of combining the camouflage with not really camouflage. You're trying to combine that with a utilitarian kind of model to produce it with these uniforms for the most part. So everyone's ending up generally a similar color, but the difference comes down to equipment and stuff like that. Like you have like the British Eighth Army in North Africa, they're going to generally be wearing those steel helmets. I don't know why I can't think of what they're called, but
little pie plate
kind
looking
of
things.
yeah, the pie plate looks similar to World War One, but I think they're like the Mark II. You're having those helmets. The German African Corps in North Africa, they're going to be wearing the steel helmets, the German helmets, and they're going to have all the German equipment. Tanks are going to further differentiate the armies. You're going to have stuff like that going on. I feel like if you're going to be playing these historical games, you want to at least try to field them in a manner that looks fairly accurate to how they're supposed to be.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying you got to go paint them blue. I'm saying that I don't know if it's worth everybody's time to, like we talked about with the photo processes and the paint chips, to decide which particular olive drab something's going to be. Right?
Mm.
That's where I think people are get pretty sideways. It's like, oh my gosh, you're U.S. Airborne, or like 2 shades off from what, Frank? From what? What are you talking about? Nobody's ever made pants this big,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because yeah, I don't think you should. I think it would be silly if your Soviets were red. That would look ridiculous. However, good luck being, painting them historically accurate. Some of those dudes were wearing their own jacket, right? Like this dude's camped out in a bombed out piece of Stalingrad in the quilt he brought from his house. Are we gonna go figure out what color that was? It's silliness. Um, I think that here's a take. I think that the people that get really bent out of shape, like in those forums and stuff about this kind of thing, that's their favorite part of the hobby. Getting bent out of shape on forums and stuff, arguing about things that nobody cares about. Also,
Yeah.
when we start talking about what color was the thing at the time, like, do we want it the color that the factory spray gun made it? Or do we want it after it was whitewashed by the guys because it was wintertime and now it's summertime again, so Major said paint them green again? Right?
Well, a lot of these camo jobs were done in the field. Uh, so you would I believe it would be like a German tank would show up Dunkelgeld, which would be the kind of yellowy tan color, and then the guys in the field would then apply like a camo paint job. But you'd end up with so much variation in how they would do that it kind of you have a lot of stuff to draw from, and There's would be like so much variation that it doesn't have to be fully completely accurate, especially at a 28 millimeter scale from gaming distance.
Well, here's another thing to think about when you're getting too worried. Let's just say there's a listener who gets too worried about exactly which color his Space Marines are, right? Relative to their Codex approved faction. Um, let's take our olive drab pants, right? And let's put them in direct sunlight. They're going to be a color. Or let's put them in overcast winter. They're going to be a different color, aren't they? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like the color something is only a part of the equation of what it looks like. And I think that that's a thing that many painters who just paint know this, right? Now, how many heavy duty mini painters are also gamers? You know, that starts to become a bifurcated kind of thing, right? I mean, there are plenty, but it's not everybody. You've got so many painters that are painting to game that would not call themselves painters of any real repute, right? Um, and I feel like they're missing this part of it, right? The fact that you could have, oh, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but I saw uh, one of these frequent Golden Demon winners painted a Huron Blackheart, very similar to the way I did. However, he did him in like an ice world in blue light, you know, with there's clearly dark sky, and then there's he's standing on an ice rock, and you can tell that the blue of this frozen lake is shining up at him. So his red, which reads as red as it can, creates this illusion that it reads purple, but it's not purple. You can still tell your brain knows that it's red. However, this paint job has baked in the environment so flawlessly that you can tell, oh, that's a red thing in a washed in cool blue. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that you need to do that for all of your little tiny World War II guys. What I'm saying is that dark green of the German Grenadiers camo thing is going to look just nearly black if you say this is overcast or this is direct sunlight or I've painted them anywhere in the middle, roundabout a color that's somewhere in the realm of reasonability, i.e., not pink or purple, right? And then I go to my buddy's house where we play in the garage, and there's not, with the garage door opener light. You see what I'm saying? It makes a
Mm-hmm.
difference because these are physical things that move around the world just like we do. Just like the tank in the picture when the picture was taken. And you see how I arrive at this whole sort of thing is nonsense, in my opinion.
I mean, I get that. I'm just saying that generally there's at least I guess a template to work on to go towards to paint towards.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and yeah, there's going to be variations with it based on how photos were taken at the time. Uh, but I think just coming at this without looking into what you're painting, like trying to figure out what the standard should be, is kind of not the way to go about this.
yeah. I'm going the opposite way. I am doing just that. I haven't looked at anything. I don't know anything. I haven't talked to anybody. Um, I will say that in the in the why can't I think of the not reconstruction, that's not what we call it, reenactment. In the reenactment scene, I see how it makes a little more sense to be worried about, or at least to take notice of, what button is this, right? Because we can just remake the garment. You know what I mean? You could see them in a museum. You could see, well, there it is. You could do that again. I think when we miniaturize the thing and turn it from a living thing or a large mechanical behemoth, right? In the case of armor, we we're making an abstraction because you can't. Again, nobody ever made pants this big. Um, what was I thinking about? I had a question I wanted your opinion on here. Oh, what do you think about like the straps and the canteens and all that? How much do you worry about those, or are you on the camp of paint them brown or gray and let it ride?
I think you should at least like look up what they would have been. Just kind of
Because you can at
get a
least,
cursory glance.
yeah, because then you can at least get. I feel like there's three, especially at 28 millimeter scale. Straps have got three colors. They can be black, they could be brown, and they could be tan.
Yeah, I think at least look it up and see like, well, which color are these going to be? How are they done? Or just not paint them. I don't know.
Not paint them is
I
a
feel like if you
choice.
if you're getting into a historical game and you're not interested in the history of how things are supposed to look, I don't see why you're even getting into this. It's kind of my thing with it. It's
Oh,
kind of yeah. I say I'm going to gatekeep now. I'm
I
going to
like it.
say, look, if you're not going to at least put some modest amount of effort to learn about what you're doing and what you're trying to put on the table, like what's the point? Like just go play 40K, go play guard or something. That's kind of where I am with it.
Yeah, the guard
It's
players are never pedantic about what's what and who's who.
oh no, not at all. It's just it feels like if you're choosing to this, play a historical game, and you're not at all interested in getting at least like the the idea across of what you're trying to present on the table, then I'm not exactly sure why you're bothering in the first place of doing any of this.
Yeah, and I like what you say there, the idea of it. Because I feel like in the case of my airborne guys, they're definitely getting the idea across. One, and I think this is a part that I mean, shoot, we have time to do it. Uh, your unit selection in something like bolt action, I think matters. Like, especially if you're playing a major power. Like, I got the armies of the United States book. It's like it's three armies in one at least. Okay, because you can have your D-Day airborne forces, you can have your regular army, and then you can have the Marines of the Pacific. Totally different units, totally different loadouts, totally different uh, just look to them. Like for one, the European guys got to deal with the cold. A lot of long sleeves. You buy yourself some U.S. Marines, a bunch of rolled up sleeves, guys with no shirts, as hot as it can be. They're doing the best they can, you know? You've got flamethrowers and craziness over there. Over here in Europe, you don't have that. And I think it would be nuts if you had them just all mixed up. Like, where are they fighting? What are they doing? It becomes, well, I'll just bring any old Space Marines I want at that point. And you're right. That doesn't communicate anything. Um, I also think too that there's a little bit of a, to me, with these historicals. I always have I always have a great interest in what happened, but the what it looked like I'm less interested in. And my mind's eye always has a probably somewhat, you know, stereotypical picture of the thing. So in the case of a game like Bolt Action, it makes a lot of sense for the Green Army men to be the US. But then I don't have such strong opinions on how the Italians should look in that. They can look however, I feel like. But when I think about like Romans and Greeks, I think about the big square shields and the shiny silver, right? And then I understand they have other stuff in that force, but that's the thing that I think about. And then, of course, when you think about the Revolutionary period or Napoleonic period, I mean, at that kind of, kind of somewhat strangely, those are as ridiculous as you can be. They're more Green Army men or the red team in Risk versus the blue team in Risk versus the black team in Risk than possibly any other time in history, unless you can name another. We're we're the red shirted guys, and we're going to shoot the blue shirted guys.
Hmm.
Hiding. Why would we do that? Do you have any more on opinions of historical accuracy in the miniature hobby?
Uh, I mean, we didn't even get into decals, but
Oh, let's
uh,
get into decals. We can take five. We can hit 5 minutes on decals.
I think the decals kind of go along with it. Uh, you don't have to do decals, I guess,
I
if you
don't
don't want
know.
to.
Okay, hold on.
It's nice if it's not,
Having just done 3 vehicles and I got more to do, man, they look so naked without their decals. And what I did, I looked up where they go and what they look like. Now, did I put every single marking on there? Absolutely not. Like for one, I got the Sherman with the wood on the sides. It covers up half the decals that it had. IRL. So those are covered up. But the Jeep, I put them where they go, and it makes a difference. They look good. I think too. Maybe part of what I'm talking about in all of this is that a dude that's this big, I don't so much care how much detail he's got. It's a really strange thing I'm finding with my bolt action painting in that I've been doing all over washes, and all our listeners know I abhor an all over wash. Except for these dudes, I'm like, man, it just works. It makes them look like they should. In 40K, I'm trying to paint in my shadows. I don't know why. However, when we go to the vehicles, I feel a little more worried about the particulars, and I think it's just because they're bigger and you can tell. Your takes on decals? Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say you don't have to do them, but they really make the vehicle at the end of the day, and it's important, I think, to try to get them where they need to go on the decals. Uh,
How'd
but
you
there's
ever get
still
the de-
variation with that.
How'd you ever get the decals on those Flames of War miniatures? Because that's a much smaller scale, isn't it?
I mean, it's a smaller scale, but the decals, I don't think they're that much different. You're still dealing with just little essential squares. Move the little polygon on the tank, kind of way. They're not any kind of small irregularity with them.
I got some tiny
Uh,
strings of numbers, boy. Some tiny strings of numbers.
yeah, I think one thing is if there's a decal that would have gone on a bolt action tank that was already really small on a Flames of War tank, it wouldn't even be there. It'd be at such a scale that you wouldn't notice it. If it was like a serial number that was like really small, it probably just wouldn't even exist. But any larger markings would be there.
Yeah, big stars. I got a lot of big stars on my stuff, which is nice.
Yeah,
I guess I had a stencil and a spray can, didn't they? Or I maybe not even a spray can, just a. What do you think? They took a big paintbrush and a stencil and just.
probably a stencil. They look fairly clean from my recollection.
I wonder if if you could see the real one, if it's got an edge to it. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm
Like
looking
you
at.
could
They
feel
they
it.
look they look clean. Like they would have done if they were hand painted. That's a pretty good like hand paint job.
No, I don't think there's any way. I imagine it's you got a big cardboard stencil and you stick that on there, a little bit of tape or just hold it, and then a guy would take and just gob on with a 4-inch brush.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
what I'm seeing, it looks like if this was done any other way, you you'd have to have like steady like surgical hands
yeah. I
to get
just
it
imagine.
accurate.
Yeah, you know another thing that I like about the painting the bolt action stuff is I imagine in my mind's eye, I imagine a whole bunch of 18-year-old dudes being told in the midst of fighting this thing and carrying on, "Hey, put fresh paint on that anti-tank gun," and you know how they would do it, like like they have somewhere to be, gobs of it on everything. Gotta
But
go, gotta go break moving
yeah,
parts loose later, right? it's
yeah,
the uh, it's the landlord special.
yeah, I want to hit on this real quick. But I saw a post online of people talking about invasion straps on model planes. People wanting to get them right, and what it is during the Normandy invasion, you would have these white stripes on the wings of planes and bombers to denote that they're an Allied aircraft for the invasion. And people get real particular over like making sure their width is right, making sure the lines are clean. And then someone posted a photo of one of the gliders, I think, from the Normandy invasion, and you can see that it looks like they just took a brush roller and like had to get it on there fast. They're just like, yeah, just put some lines on there. They're not even. They're wobbling around, kind of off to the side. It looks like if you took that and shrunk it down to a model size and said, hey, look, I painted this, you would get so much hate online over it if you were to post that. They'd say your lines aren't clean. They're not edged right. But that's how it was.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it
they
makes
were just
sense
kind of
that's how it
globbing it on there.
was.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, man, is it makes sense that that's how it was because it's the only way it could ever be. I mean,
Hmm.
again, when we start getting into what color is it, I think that is just that is a nowhere discussion because of all the things I've said. Is this a factory job? Is this right out of the factory, or is this after it's banged around with crap stacked on top of it, and then somebody said that looks terrible, repaint it in the field, you know?
Hmm.
Um, or
And if
like we talked about, the way they would whitewash them for the winter time with whatever they've got, and then maybe or maybe not. I imagine that some of these they would be like, okay, spray them off and paint them green again. Okay, now what color is it, right? What
yeah,
what's the
and
coverage
if you've
like?
used yeah, and if you use Games Workshop paints in the past, you've noticed that over time, based on what supplies they have, Games Workshop will change the tints of their paints ever slightly. If you have a pot of Ultramarines blue over like 5 years, they're all going to be a different shade of color. That kind of stuff happened back then too. The paint that's coming out of your factory, who knows like what the ratio they had available for the different pigments they were putting into it. So one like platoon on in the field may have a paint can that is nowhere alike than this can of paint on the other side of the battlefield of another platoon in the same force. So you could have tanks that are like shades different
Well, yeah, I mean,
just
think
due to material
well, and
material supplies.
think about it. Oh well, whatever paint supplier went out of business. So now we ordered a bunch. The government ordered a bunch from Sherwin-Williams, and here it is. Is it the same? No. Is it roundabout green? Yes. Guess what color all our stuff is, boys? Roundabout green until we start fighting in Afghanistan, in which case we'll need to call them up for some tan. Here's a good one to consider, talking about how you could end up with all this range. Basically what I'm doing with my army is probably not the right way to go. You should probably do a bit better research than I care to do, all right? But I'm also doing a particular thing on purpose, okay? However, I think that everybody should be happy with and let people live with having their stuff in a range. Because I imagine that at some point in history, we had a whole bunch of green tanks, trucks, etc. And then somebody said, hey, we're going to go and mess up these Arabs. And they said, okay, everybody paint the things tan. So now you got tan over green. Those probably looked nothing like they were intended to look. And then some stuff started rolling out of the factory tan. And then it would have looked wholly different than that last batch. That's how paint works, folks. It's kind of clear. It just is. Put your takes down below. Tell me how wrong I am about all of this. I imagine there are people that are like, no, man, the ultramarine blue is the color that the ultramarines are. Okay, well, what about the speed paint that says that? Because it, by design, ends up with a whole lot of different shades. You got anything else to close with, Austin?
Look up what things are. Figure out what color they're generally supposed to be and paint them that way. You're playing a historical game for a reason. It's not really kind of just paint whatever you want. Unless you're basing it off something else. I don't know. You could do a base it off a specific movie based on the period where things are done a certain way. That's one way you could do it. But generally, keep it within the historical realm.
That is another part of my mind's eye picture of like U.S. forces in World War II is all those John Wayne movies where all the enlisted men were 45 years old. That was a lot of. All right, everybody, here's some green fatigues. Let's go play soldier.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you next time.